everyone, this is Masako Ganaha in Davos, and I got this great opportunity to interview. You know who I am going to interview. Let me introduce him. Mr. Ezra Levant. He is a journalist, publisher of Rebel News, telling the other side of the story, and awarded the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal for advancing freedom of expression. It's so nice to see you in person.
Thank you, Masako. It's nice to meet you too.
Let me first tell you, the reason why I decided to come here is because last year I saw your work on Twitter, and your team is very amazing, and I realized, oh, we can go to Davos and like expose, and you are doing this current moment. So let me ask you. So could you please introduce yourself a little bit to my Japanese audience?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for your very kind words. I'm moved very much that you were inspired to become a citizen journalist based on what we were doing. That's very touching. I'm very excited to hear that. I believe anyone can be a citizen journalist. What does that mean? It means someone who wants to tell a story. We can all tell stories. Someone who wants to ask questions, someone who is curious, someone who is skeptical. And maybe 20 years ago it would be impossible, because to be a journalist 20 years or 30 years ago, before the internet was widespread, you had to have a newspaper printing press. You had to have a big TV station or a radio station. But now anyone with a smartphone and a Twitter account can be a journalist. And even if you haven't gone to journalism school, as long as you have a curiosity and skepticism and are willing to ask questions of powerful people, you are a journalist. Journalism is an activity. It's not a profession. It's not a qualification. If you do journalism, you are a journalist. And one of the things that I find interesting is how citizen journalists are often doing better journalism than officially trained journalists with the mainstream media. So I'm very excited that you, Masako, are here in Davos, and I've seen by following your Twitter account that you've actually reported on some very interesting stories.
Thank you so much. And recently I've been following your Twitter too, and because this street is so crowded and there are so many quote-unquote important figure, let's say, you just go for a target and then you ask really tough question. And so far, could you please give us comment? How is your reporting this year?
Sure. I mean, sometimes powerful people make themselves available to journalists. They ask questions, they hold press conferences, and they allow journalists to come, even if those journalists are critical of them. I respect those people, but some powerful people do not want to talk to journalists at all, or don't want to talk to journalists they don't control. So some powerful people manage to avoid any accountability or scrutiny. So when I saw the CEO of Pfizer, the drug company that makes various vaccines, when I saw him on the street, I knew that I had to ask him questions right there, because he never has media opportunities with ordinary reporters. He only talks to reporters he can control. So Avi Yamini, my colleague, and I walked down the street asking him questions. Now, he refused to answer, and we saw that very quickly. So what was the point of asking more questions even though he refused to answer? Well, the point was to show that there are real questions that he should answer, but that he won't, and to show the shamefulness that he could have answered some of those at least, but he refused to. And he's a public person who has changed millions of lives, who has made billions of dollars, who has affected our civil liberties, and yet he won't answer questions. It was very revealing that Avi and I, who are citizen journalists, who are not officially accredited at Davos, asked those skeptical questions, but all the official journalists from the New York Times or the Washington Post did not. And let me say, Masako, I saw the video of you talking to Klaus Schwab. And he is a very powerful person. And he wants to reshape the world. So you said you wanted to ask him questions. And he eventually turned to you and he said, who do you work for? And when you said you were independent, he laughed and turned around and walked away. And so although he didn't answer your questions, Masako, your question revealed a lot because it showed he does not believe in transparency. He does not believe in talking to the little people unless you are one of his favorite friends in the media, unless you're part of the Wall Street Journal or New York Times or Washington Post, journalists who pay him to attend, he's not going to talk to you. So the question you asked him, even though he didn't answer it properly, gave us an answer, didn't it?
Thank you so much. Because on the ground, I see your team and you just going like professionally and asking question, very exact question that they need to be asked. But me, I'm like, oh, there is this famous person, I get like, okay, this is my time and I will like set my mind and go for it. But I realize I'm not aggressive enough, so I wanted to learn from you how I can be more aggressive.
Well, Masako, you have to be yourself.
Yes.
I'm myself, and Avi is a little bit different. Everyone has their own personality. Now, it is true that in journalism, when you're going after an important person who's moving quickly, you do have to be maybe a little louder than normal. And I know that you are a very polite person. And sometimes being too polite lets a politician off the hook. But you have to have a balance because you don't want to be too rude and you want to be yourself. But there are ways of doing journalism that I know that with practice, you'll get stronger and stronger. I'm 50 years old. I'm getting old now. I've been doing journalism since I was in high school. I worked for the student newspaper when I was a teenager. So in a way, I've been practicing for more than 30 years. So, excuse me, if you have been doing journalism for 1 year, it's not going to happen all at once. I have watched your Twitter accounts. You have already done excellent journalism on your first foreign adventure. If you come back next year, you'll be stronger. And if you do other things, perhaps in Japan, you'll get more practice. Plus, in Japan, I imagine that other people are more polite too, the politicians included. I don't know, I've never been to Japan. But thank you for your compliments. I think that I can see already in the few days you've been here, by watching your Twitter feed, you are doing real work. And I hope you're getting support not just from Japanese people, but from people around the world. Are you getting support from around the world?
Yes. Thanks to my viewers, I can travel across the world. So I'm very thankful to those people.
I'm very glad to hear that, because if you can pay your costs from your viewers, that makes you free. That sets you free, makes you independent. So you don't have to take money from Klaus Schwab. You don't have to take money from the government. If your viewers love your work enough that they will pay for your travel, that's the best kind of journalist to be.
Yes, and I know you're busy, so I need to, may I ask one last question?
Yeah.
So you're from Canada, media news, correct?
That's right.
And I saw during this severe measurement by the Canadian government, the truck convoy, they fought and they spread the courage to all over the world. And being a Canadian and showing this courageous act, could you please share us what you love your country the most, so that we can understand the strength of you, people like you?
Well, thank you. In Canada, all the political parties agreed with each other on pandemic lockdowns, on vaccine mandates. All of the parties agreed. All of the mainstream media agreed. All of the judges agreed. All of the professors agreed. all of the doctors agreed. And any who didn't were fired or banned or silenced. So there actually were some who didn't agree, but they were silenced. But ordinary truckers, independent-minded people said enough is enough. So without anyone organizing them, without any money, without any help, they spontaneously drove to Ottawa in a very long trucking convoy. And all across the country, people went outside to watch as they drove by on the road. They went on overpasses to look, and they couldn't believe thousands and thousands of trucks. And so the whole country woke up and they said, maybe not everyone agrees. Maybe I'm not the only one who is a skeptic. And those truckers, everyone likes truckers because they're independent, they're honest, they're hardworking. We rely on them. So the truckers had the moral authority, and they woke up the nation, and they helped get us out of our lockdowns. And so that courage spread. And people around the world, they were riveted by it, because 100 trucks in a row is a very spectacular thing to see on a highway. And Canada has very long highways. So you would see trucker convoys for miles, and it inspired people. And it was a wonderful moment for Canada and a wonderful moment for independent journalists, because the government-oriented journalists hated the truckers. But independent citizen journalists, like the ones that we are, we cheered for the truckers, and we helped set the record straight, because the government-oriented journalists were lying about the truckers, calling them racist or calling them sexist or strange things like that, which they weren't. So by having ordinary people with cell phone cameras just like yours, we helped tell the true story. So it was a wonderful moment for our democracy and for freedom.
Wow, it's very great to hear this. And many Japanese people go study abroad to Canada to learn English.
Okay.
Yes, and we only know about this culture side, like good maple syrup.
Yes, right. Yeah.
But it's interesting to learn how we need to be courageous and stand up united. So please keep up great work, and please follow Rebel News, and please support Rebel News. And it's influencing a person like me in Japan too. So I hope you will join this circle. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Misako. Thank you.
Thank you.